The Public Health Agency of Canada is now warning of an outbreak of drug-resistant salmonella. So far, there have been 40 confirmed cases in 6 provinces, and almost half of those cases are children under the age of 5. The incidents date back as far as 3 years ago, and they've been linked to raw pet food and contact with cattle. Joining us for a closer look at this story is Lawrence Goodridge, director of the Canadian Research Institute for Food Safety at the University of Guelph. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Good morning.
So the outbreak spans 6 provinces. How then does the Public Health Agency of Canada track that?
So the Public Health Agency of Canada is responsible for tracking outbreaks that are national in focus, so at least more than one province. And so they use a technique called whole genome sequencing, which they use to, once a patient has been identified as having, in this case, salmonella, they determine the genetic fingerprint of the salmonella using whole genome sequencing. And if more than one patient has the same salmonella with the same genetic fingerprint, and they can determine that it came from the same source, then that is considered an outbreak.
One of the other things that's interesting about this is the fact that 43% of the people infected in this outbreak are kids under the age of 5. So if this strain is resistant to antibiotics, which is what the warning is from Public Health Agency of Canada, how are they being treated? And then what is the larger concern with this being a resistant strain?
So this particular strain of salmonella is resistant to many common antibiotics used to treat salmonella infections in humans, but it's not resistant to all antibiotics.
Okay.
So there's several high-risk groups when we talk about salmonella infections. So that includes children, as you've mentioned, but also the elderly and those with weakened immune systems because of an underlying condition such as cancer. And so in those cases, they would have some problems clearing the infection and would be given antibiotics. But most people, healthy adults, do not need antibiotics. The infection should clear approximately after 7 days or so.
Yeah, very uncomfortable 7 days, though.
Yes.
The first cases are linked to this particular outbreak, go all the way back to June of 2020. So how does an outbreak carry on for so long?
Well, the outbreaks carried on for so long because the Public Health Agency of Canada could not, until recently, determine the source. And the reason for that is because there's approximately 40 people that are known to be infected over 3 years, which breaks down to about 13 people per year.
Right.
So for a national outbreak, that's not really a very high number. And then when it's spread across so many provinces, it can be very hard to determine a relationship between the different cases. Another reason, I think, is because this outbreak has happened during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right.
And so people, when people get sick with salmonella or other foodborne diseases, they generally don't go to the hospital. But I think that was even more amplified during the COVID-19 outbreak because in some cases, emergencies were closed and so forth.
For people who haven't been following this story, how did it jump from raw pet food to people?
So there's several ways that can happen. And I know it's not just raw pet food that the outbreak's been linked to, it's been linked to cattle, particularly calves. But with respect to raw pet food, handling the raw pet food, you mentioned most of the cases, approximately 43% are in children under 5 years of age. So if children handled raw pet food and then touched their mouth without washing their hands, that's a root. Also, the pets, the dogs, could spread it. We know that. It could be spread via contaminated surfaces, for example, in the kitchen, where the raw pet food has been prepared.
It is a fascinating story, Lawrence. Thanks for coming on to tell us more about it.
Thank you very much.
For some people.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.